Hey everyone, this is Kristen Pretty. I am a research scientist at the National Survey of Student Engagement, also known as NSSE, and I'll be talking about getting a jump start on using your raw NSSE data to the NSSE data delivery. So NSSE's raw data ensures that institutions can download their raw data unformatted from the interface, which is where you have done all of the options for your administration. What's included in the raw data delivery is core server responses, so responses from the server that every student has answered, topical modules, so any topical module selections you made. That data will also be available, as well as student comments. So all of that raw data will be included in your raw data delivery. But supplemental variables that are not that are calculated in terms of engagement indicators, any other scales, any other coded variables are not included, as well as no comparison data is included in this raw data delivery. But you may be asking, why is there early raw data available for your NSSE administration? And so we listened to institutions a couple of years ago where they talked about how they wanted some early data for the institutions to kind of get started on some processes. So for example, you may think of your early raw data when you're thinking about end of semester activities. And so if you plan your administration earlier on the spring, and you want some raw data, some early data to understand how to plan, pivot some early end of the semester activities, that may be helpful. So thinking about, graduating students and what you can prepare for graduating students, or thinking about what may need to be options for graduating students, and thinking about what are the numbers or the information in the raw data saying about their experiences, as well as in the comments. Other folks may think about summer projects, and so if summer's a little bit lighter for your institution, you may be thinking about how you can utilize the raw data for your summer workshops, or to inform some developmental processes with faculty, staff, administrators, anybody who's involved or working with the data. You also may think about how to do some preparation for the new semester. And so using the end of spring or at least all of summer really to think through how you can start to get a head start on using your NSSE data for before you receive your full reports and full data processes in August as well. And so the raw data really focuses on the information from your students specifically, without the distraction of other comparison groups featured in the NSSE report package. And so really a chance to kind of understand or get kind of a check-in as your administration is going to understand what's going on with your students and what trends you may see forthcoming in terms of how the data may shape out when you get your full data later on in the end of summer. So there are three ways you can think about utilizing your raw data for preparation or planning in terms of what you will receive, again, for your full NSSE package data. So one, you can really plan your data exploration projects for current and future data you receive. You can also start discussions with stakeholders about early data findings, but you also may explore resources on how other institutions have used their data. So I'll quickly go over what some of those may look like for you. So one, in terms of data exploration planning, so this may be a good chance to revisit the goals and intentions for the NSSE participation. So if you signed up and registered for NSSE last summer, last fall, you may want to revisit the purpose with your colleagues, administrators, anybody who helped kind of coordinate the NSSE process to understand, why did we do NSSE? What were the purposes? What were our intentions and goals? And see how the data can start to help you align with those goals and those purposes, right? So you may identify core exploration processes, or you may identify a core data exploration team. So if it's your institutional research team, or if there's another administration team that works with any of your offices, you may identify those core groups and say, you all will be our data team experts for this process. And so you all can start the process on looking at the raw data, organizing it in your systems and structures that you have, and starting to get, again, really prepared for what that process will look like, but also needed expertise. And so we offer our data in different file structures. So if you need to find someone who's available to knows how to work SPSS, that may be helpful to identify early on. If someone is really whiz on Excel, looking at Excel data, that may also be really helpful. So those may be really helpful things to identify early on, so that way when you get the full data, you are kind of equipped and prepared for that analysis. But you also may think about data concepts or special groups to highlight to start exploring. And so some of that information is already available to you. Again, kind of the core data input is there, as well as topical module input is there. And so you may identify some core tenets, some questions, some concepts that may be really special to you, depending on your goals, and that may be helpful to explore or to start exploring as you're thinking about your raw data and how that can prepare you for, again, your full NSSE package. So we have a lot of helpful resources to help with this kind of data exploration process. And so all of these are links that you can click on if you have access to the PowerPoint. But we can think about inclusive data analysis. So again, if there's any special interest groups you're looking at, we want to be more careful and tentative in terms of how you're using your data to explore certain concepts. That's be a really good resource. We also have our data code books. And so if you're wondering, the data looks a little different than what you saw in the survey, our data code books are a great crosswalk to really help you understand both the data and the survey and how those all come together. We also have syntax guides. And so if you have a data team or folks who are wanting to create your own concepts and scales based off of what we create, but you want to create those early on, we have a lot of guides, be able to guide you on syntax or different statistical tools. We also have accreditation toolkits. So if you use your data for accreditation processes, we have some of those toolkits can help you, again, kind of map out where the data lands on some of those accreditation planning spaces. We also have sample reports. And so if you're new to NSSE and you've never seen what our reports look like, that may be a helpful place to kind of get a sense of how that data may be shaped up into a sample report. I also have a couple of web pages about raw data download information. So again, more information I've shared here about what those data look like, what's included, what's not included, and the purpose of that. You may also think about starting discussions with stakeholders. And so this could be a really good place to, again, start really planning and crafting out what this data can do for your institution as you all move along in the spring, early summer. So you may identify stakeholders with whom you want the data and results to be shared. And so maybe there's some entities on campus, some centers, data folks, administrators, et cetera, that you're really wanting to get this data out to. And so you may have to start processing what the templates look like or what the visualizations look like. And so now you have some key data points to start planning that out. That way you don't have to wait until the end of the summer to make sure that you can have all that mapped out. Essentially, you can just take that finalized data and plop that into any sort of visualization or template that you have. But you also may want to discuss and organize which results would be helpful to colleges and departments. And so this may also be where you take a look at the major category and looking at how data is shaping up for different majors or, again, departments and colleges, and start having those discussions now about what they could or should be expecting from you. And this also is a good place to share preliminary findings based on data exploration planning. So if you've had, your planning, your team, your expertise needed, and you kind of send out a notice and say, hey, this is what's coming to you, be prepared. That also is a really great way to, again, just kind of prepare everybody for what's to come, but also prepare everybody for what you're planning in terms of this data exploration. And so we have, again, some helpful NSSE resources for this. We have a student success mapping, which is one of our newest tools, where you can think of how our data maps onto different student success and student engagement concepts. And so that's a really great way to think about if you're kind of conceptually understanding or thinking through some different higher education concepts. We have data that kind of, or our mapping tool shows you how to map that data onto those concepts. We also have the campus-wide mapping tool, which is a really extensive tool and actually maps on all of our NSSE items to what entity on campus may find that data most useful, right? So for example, if you're thinking about career services and wanting to share information with career services, we have a crosswalk for our campus-wide mapping that shows you what items may be really helpful to send information to or send results to career services so they can improve their practices and structures based off the data. So that tool is really extensive. And again, all of the raw data you receive is also within that campus-wide mapping tool. So that can be really useful as you get started to think about this step, but also sharing NSSE results. And so this may also be a good place, again, as you're planning your data exploration and thinking about who, what, when, where, why we share these results. We have lots of different institutional examples of how they've shared their data, how they displayed their data on their website, how they've analyzed their data. So that may be also a really good place to explore to kind of get some ideas and some inspiration, again, before you get the finalized NSSE data to really start planning that process. And lastly, really get inspired. So this kind of extends my last point is getting inspired by other institutions. And so other institutions have done tons of different NSSE data explorations. And so you may take a look at our lessons from the field resource, which again has a ton of different institution stories about how others are using NSSE data for institutional change on their campus. Again, some have done extensive ways that they displayed visualizations on their website. Others have done extensive analysis to be able to, again, create some sustainable change to their strategic planning. So that could be a really good, again, inspiration early on to start planning out that process. You may also think about our past webinars and workshops. So we're NSSE staff, we provide some guidance on topics around your data and results. So those could be really good ways to just, again, get some insight into how we're thinking about the data and results and how you can think about them on your campus. And lastly, really think about our partnership models and our options. And so we are really open and available to consult, help, guide any institution that needs any assistance with thinking through how to utilize their data, how to utilize their raw data, but also how to, again, prepare that raw data exploration and processes and conversations with stakeholders for what they can receive for their final NSSE package and how to make sure all of that fits in nicely together. So we look forward to hearing from you if you have any questions and let us know if there's anything we can do to help you think about your raw data.